Everyone here in the chamber and elsewhere.
Item number 3, oath of allegiance or affirmation of a new senator. Item number 4, confirmation of minutes.
Leader of Government Business, Senator Adrian Thomas.
Pleasant morning, Madam President and your staff. Good morning to my colleagues on the other side of the House. Pleasant morning to my colleagues on this side of the House. Dr. Francis Alexis, KC, and his team. Quite happy to have you here this morning. Madam President, I stand and I beg that the minutes of the proceedings of the sitting of the Senate held at Parliament Building, Mount Weldale, St. George, on Tuesday, the 1st of July, 2025 at 9 a.m. be taken as read.
I thank you, Senator. Honorable members, the motion is that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the Senate held at the Parliament Chamber in Mount Weldale, St. George's on Tuesday, the 1st of July, 2025 at 9 a.m. be taken as read. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Senator Adrian Thomas.
Madam President, I beg that the minutes of the proceedings of the sitting of the Senate held at the Parliament Building, Mount Weldale, St. George, on Tuesday, the 1st of July, 2025 at 9 a.m. be confirmed.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable members, the motion is that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the Senate held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Tuesday, 1st July, 2025 at 9 a.m. be confirmed. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And those opposed say nay. The ayes have it.
Item number 5, messages from the Governor General. Item number 6, announcements by Madam President.
A pleasant good morning again, and greetings to our special members in the public gallery. I believe I see two of our notable, distinguished legal experts. It is Mr. Francis Alexis, QC. Take a bow. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the work you've been leading. And next to you, sir, if my eyes serve me well, I believe it is Attorney Lane? No. Is it Ewart Lane? Yes. It is Ewart Lane. Pleasure to have you with us, sir. You have gotten younger and more handsome, so my eyes deceive me. Especially at your age, but that's what intellectual work does to you. It gives you youth. Thank you for your work as well. All other members, welcome. I think our numbers ought to swell by the young people a little later on. I want to, again, as per our last sitting, warmly congratulate all the families who are graduating students who have now just about graduated every class for the year 2024 to 2025. Mr. Minister of Education, I'm sure you're pleased that you have turned out, another 2,000 secondary school grads, several hundred TAMCC students and others. not just to join the labor market, to join something we call the adult world. And I trust and pray that all families and students find a reward for the investment they have made in formal schooling and other forms of education. May I also congratulate the nation on its first ever marking of the 1st of August as Emancipation Day in Grenada. It's an important beginning, legal emancipation from chattel slavery and enslavement of our people. And I trust that all the festivities which are proudly being anchored in St. Andrews this year will find a nation standing on its feet, looking forward as we continue our emancipation journey as royal and distinguished human beings. Congratulations, Grenada. And I also want to wish us a very safe and enjoyable carnival season that is around the corner. Here ends my announcements for the moment.
Item number 7, ministerial statements.
Honorable Senator Gloria Thomas Samuel, you've requested the floor. You have it, madam.
Thank you, Madam President. Pleasant good morning to all in this honorable House. I take this opportunity to bring this House, the nation, and the wider community up to date on activities and initiatives that we have carried out over the last 2 months or so at the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs. Madam President, our ministry continues to be one of the most active ministries in the government of Grenada, and we pledge to continue to deliver on all fronts. Madam President, we held a high-level sub-regional consultation on the Inter-American Model Law to prevent, punish, and eradicate digital gender-based violence against women and girls. This was held at the Radisson Beach Hotel. This initiative was a huge success. It was a 2-day consultation, and we saw participants from local, regional, and international stakeholders. The consultation aimed to foster a participatory space for dialogue, exchange, and reflection, with the goal of enriching the draft model law through the experiences and contributions of stakeholders. We had representatives from our government, civil society, academia, and international organizations. Participants engaged in focused working sessions to analyze and contribute to the draft. The result of this engagement was very rewarding and promising for future establishment of that law. The Chinese ambassador, Wing Hongqian, paid a farewell visit to the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs during this month. During the visit, Ambassador expressed his deep appreciation for the cordial and meaningful working relationship that was developed over the last few years. Ambassador assured us that whatever he can continue to influence, he will do so to ensure Grenada continues to receive support and assistance from China. We wish Ambassador all the best as he lives our shore for his homeland. Madam President, we observe World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, 15th June. The observance commenced with a message on television by yours truly, Minister for Social Development. And on June 17th, the Ministry of Social Development hosted a forum to observe World Elder Abuse Awareness Day under the theme, Expand the Discussion, Recognize the Signs to Reduce the Risk. The initiative focused on recognizing and reporting and preventing the mistreatment of older persons. The activity saw a presentation from 3 distinguished persons. Dr. Wendy Crawford Daniel, who presented on the topic, Older People in Grenada. Mr. Jervis Dabrio presented on the topic, Avoiding Cyber Abuse, Safety Navigating the Digital World in My Older Years. And Ms. Jocelyn Redhead, who presented on legal issues affecting the elderly. And in her presentation, there was a surprise for most of us, because she explained to us that if children refuse to look after their parents, they could be prosecuted. The event helped in understanding elder abuse, how to identify them, and knowing how to report suspected abuse and supporting elder adults who may be experiencing it. Madam President, the ministry held a 2-day high-level policy dialogue on disability inclusion, rights, protection, and state responsibility in Grenada. As a ministry, we continue to collaborate with social partners to ensure active participation of persons with disability in policy development. Our SEED program. Madam President, we have completed the rollout of the SEED cash card in St. George's. St. Andrew, the activity is 90% completed, and we'll be continuing this work in St. David's in the next 2 weeks. Madam President, the issuance of this cash card has brought great relief to the beneficiaries who have received their card thus far, and the long lines at the revenue offices has dwindled tremendously. WASH, that is the water access and sanitation in households. On June 23rd, the Ministry of Housing held a closing ceremony of the WASH program in the community known as Lakabeke in St. Andrew. 23 bathrooms and toilets were handed over to residents in the community. Stakeholders who assisted in making this project a reality included NAWASA, LL Ramnani, Nation Builders, and other business entities. They all had a representative at the closing ceremony, and they expressed satisfaction for the quality of the final product. Our ministry is currently engaged in a number of community development infrastructural work, as well as people empowerment initiative. We are constructing a bathroom and toilet facility on the Hope Beach. We have roadworks ongoing in Post Royal and Cafe and in St. Patrick's West. We have a summer program for children at Lafayette School. We have an electrical installation program ongoing in Happy Hill community. And so, Madam President, this is just a snippet of what we've been doing for the last 2 months. And I continue to ensure that our people at the community level continue to receive services and opportunities geared towards their enhancement and development. I thank you.
I thank you, Minister Thomas Samuels. It's always very, uplifting for us as Grenadians to hear about the progress of our brothers and sisters in any field. I thought you were going to give a definition of who constitutes an elder, maybe by age, and I just want to be sure that I'm included among the elders, and to say thank you to Grenada for recognizing the ending of abuse of the elderly through an awareness day that is celebrated globally. So many older persons are abused actively or inactively, and this is an important stakeholder ill that we can eradicate. So thanks to the ministry and to the WASH. Again, the lifting of sanitation levels across the country, particularly in rural and low-income communities, is something to celebrate. So thank you for doing that and all the other social development work in the era of the SDGs. It's extremely important if we are to emerge as a truly middle-income country. Thanks to the ministry. Any other ministerial reports? The floor has been requested by the Minister of Tourism and other related portfolio. I'm not sure what he's going to speak about. You have the floor, Minister, Senator.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, yes, I do have quite a few departments in the Ministry of Tourism, Creative Economy and Culture. But this morning, I just want to make a small statement on the carnival, the fact that this will be the last sitting of Parliament, of the Senate, before the carnival season. I just, in anticipation, Madam President, I just want to welcome many of our visitors to Grenada for the carnival season. I've met quite a few of them. People started coming in already, and I can anticipate in the next couple of weeks, a lot of our friends and families, visitors for the very first time will be coming to Grenada to participate in maybe the best carnival in the Caribbean. Madam President, I want to also welcome our visitors this weekend from the continent of Africa for the Afreximbank conference that will be taking place here. I think it will be a very good opportunity to reconnect with our brothers and sisters in Africa. And what a time we are sitting here today, continuing on the road of emancipating ourselves from mental slavery and all the forms of activities that will demonstrate our lack of sovereignty as a people. And we'd like to welcome those visitors from Africa and the Caribbean also. Madam President, I will also want to really and truly appeal to the community outside there to let us have a good carnival. Let us enjoy ourselves, violence-free. I call on all citizens of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique to cooperate with the Royal Grenada Police Force. Over the years, we have had success in terms of having a peaceful carnival, and I really hope that we will have a better carnival this year. I also want to make the appeal to our friends and young colleagues who really and truly want to enjoy themselves and maybe think that the consumption of alcohol. I want to appeal to the young people, appeal to my colleagues to be very cautious in the consumption of alcohol. It's a time of the year when maybe we feel we can go an extra mile, but we know what are the disadvantages of over-consuming alcohol. So I want to really and truly appeal to the community to take it easy. Also, the issue of driving on our roads, we have recognized the amount of vehicles that are in Grenada today and how frustrating it can be to get from one point to the next. And during the carnival season, I really want to appeal to the public to drive cautiously and with care and attention. Madam President, last night we had this weekend we'll be having the semifinals, and Progress Pack will be coming live. Last night we had a successful, groovy semifinals there. Tonight, we'll be having maybe the best semifinal for the Soca Monarchs so far. The artists are excited. They are of good quality. The music is sounding good. So I do pray and hope and appeal to my good friend on the side there that we may need a little extra this afternoon to attend the show. So if we can leave here by 6 o'clock, we'll be happy. Madam President, on Sunday we'll be having the semi-final for the Calypsonians, the Kaisonian, and also we would not forget our good friend in St. Mark, Victoria. And I'm urging all Grenadians to maybe visit Victoria on Saturday. From dawn to sunset, we'll be having the traditional mass, maybe throughout the Caribbean, the traditional mass has survived the most in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit-Martinique, and we are very proud of that. And this administration has put a lot of emphasis in terms of promoting and protecting the traditional mass of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit-Martinique. The following weekend, our children will get the chance to participate in our carnival, and it's normally a long day procession for our kids, and we really want to come out and support them. And then we go into the carnival weekend. So once again, I want to urge Grenadians to participate, patronize, and be good citizens throughout the carnival season. Thank you very much.
We thank you. I can see Minister breaking protocol here. Thank you, Senator, for the updates, and I'm sure the entire chamber joins with you in welcoming and in cautioning. Thank you. Senator Roderick St. Clair, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Madam President, and I will say good morning to you, and of course, both sides of the aisle. I want to say good morning to everyone, and of course, the staff and others inside and on the outside. Of course, as I always comment on our dear Senator Thomas, Gloria Thomas's update is very important that we don't lose that fabric, and I want to commend her for the areas of focus. This is very innovative and creative, the whole issue with the digital abuse, if you want to call it, that's what I understand, with women and girls, and how you deal with that whole conference. And I know it's not just it was a local conference, and those initiatives have to bring light to the new dangers. You know, we speak about hurricanes and climate change, but those are those other changes that influence the people. And in all places, whether it's in the work space or whether in the home environment or business environment, and she has to continue to build on those for which we learn. Sometimes we have a regional conference or international conference. The question is, how do we take this and replicate at the village level, at the community level, so that it doesn't go far away? I know that would not be far-fetched from her. Here in the work that is being done with, in the summer, she speak about the electrical and all those different activities to get persons engaged. And not only individuals maybe from school or unemployed, but it's something that could happen all the time, especially not only just the unemployed, but a lot of elderly who might be home, might be retired, although we don't get the definition of elderly yet, may want things to do, whether it's to learn a foreign language, play an instrument, you know, do something. And so it's a challenge that I think the ministry has as we all grow old. But I know that she and the staff is up to it, that it can create many different nucleus throughout the country to keep those persons engaged. Some persons volunteer, which is okay to do things, but a lot of others want to learn to new things, maybe to crochet, to different things, to sew, to draw, and those things. So I'm just sharing some additional ideas that can come out from this. And of course, commend you for that whole issue with the session, particularly the digital part with the LA, because there can be so much different spams. They're online, they want to connect and they see things popping up and so on. And of course, Mr. Davio has been doing excellent work. We know in whatever means you call him, he's always there. So my comment is to commend you for that and to continue going ahead. And we look forward for great things from you and your staff. We know your staff are to be really proud of you with the support that you're giving them, and you're proud of them with the support that they giving you too. And of course, that was my comment I wanted to make initially, and it was good to see Leader of Government Business, Senator Thomas, Agent Thomas, making a ministerial statement. I think that's the first time he make one. I want to congratulate him for doing that. But on the issue of Carnival, I think I would want to endorse those comments that he made in terms of all of those areas, and in particular that original mass in Victoria is something that I didn't even realize this was happening, and it's sort of funny. When I went to a special session by Dr. Marcel Rios doing a biography, and he, I know, is a main man in orchestrating those things, and that was part of his legacy repertoire, and that's when I learned about this thing the first time, and he explained to me. And so now that I'm hearing about it again, I would try and make some attempt to be in Victoria, one of I would say my second home and my third home. I love it in that area. So Senator Quince, I would plan to be up there tomorrow at some time.
I thank you, Senator Sinclair, for thanking the workers in the Ministry of Social Development through its leadership and its representation here in the Parliament. Thank you for your thanks to the people. Senator Adrian Thomas.
Yes, Madam President. I just want to correct my colleague on the other side. This is not my first ministerial statement, for the sake of the records.
Call it morning exuberance. Thank you. Senator David Andrew.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Good morning to you. Good morning to Clark, and our staff, and members of this honorable House, and our distinguished guests in the chamber, and Grenadians and others following this feed, this broadcast at home and abroad, wherever you are. I'm happy to bring some brief updates on some very key initiatives taking place within the Ministry of Education. But even before I do that, I want to point out that we are in the summer vacation period, and I want to make an appeal for safety of our children. In fact, we've been in the practice in the Ministry of Education of sending a release out to parents and to guardians, because this extended vacation period is a period when we have increased risk to our nation's children. And so I'm appealing to parents, I'm appealing to guardians. Let's ensure that we know where our children are, that we know with whom our children are, where they're going, what they're doing, and we ensure that they have supervision. You've already realized that there have been quite a few house fires. And so it's safety, ensuring that the agents, the flammable agents, are out of their reach, and so there's always supervision. So I appeal to our population to ensure that we keep our nation's children safe during the summer. We want to be able to receive them warmly come September without losing any of them and without having them suffer undue stress emotionally and psychologically because of the losses that incur when there are these fires and unsafe elements. Also, even as we contemplate, as we go into the carnival season, we know that there are bad actors and there are lurking sexual risks waiting to prey on our nation's children. And so in that context too, I implore our parents, our guardians, to be extra vigilant in protecting our nation's children. I want to report, Madam President, that within the last 2 weeks, we've had, last week we had a 2-day math symposium. I think prior to it taking place, I did mention it in this house, but I'm happy to report it took place, and it took place very successfully. The 2-day math symposium, July 14th and 15th. It was part of a national conversation, a national math symposium where we had representatives from the opposition, we had government officials, we had ministry officials, we had past mathematics professors, we invited other stakeholders across the nation to discuss the issue of mathematics nationally. This was part and is part of our national mathematics strategy, because we recognize as a nation, we cannot wait for CXC to do it for us. We cannot wait for the University of the West Indies, and while we would appreciate the help that they can bring, but as an independent nation, we have an obligation and a responsibility to arrest and to begin to discuss and interrogate the challenge we have in mathematics performances across our country. And so we had the featured speaker, Dr. Lois George, who is a senior mathematics lecturer at the University of the West Indies, Mona Campus, Jamaica. She was excellent and created very instructive insights into a lot of the practices that we use in mathematics instruction. We had panel discussions, and it was just an energizing and very, very instructive 2-day seminar. That, I must say, is part of our wider 2025 to 2030 mathematics strategy, and that's being built out. In fact, this symposium, the 2-day symposium, Madam President, was to ensure we got input from all of these stakeholders to further refine the national mathematics strategy. Because there are some things we are quite sure about already within the Ministry of Education, some things we are doing, some things we are going to do, but we wanted public input to further shape the mathematics strategy that we are going to use in Grenada, CARICOM, Petit Martinique. So among these things, other interventions that we are going to pursue as part of the strategy would be to do widespread training and retraining of teachers in how we instruct mathematics. We are going to interrogate the curriculum to make sure it's a lot more relevant, and so we ensure that teachers and students get exposed to mathematics that make sense, because not everybody sees the importance of calculus. Not everybody gets to see that. I mean, some who go on to engineering and all that will appreciate algebra, and they'll appreciate calculus and all of those things, but the average person needs to recognize that the driving, the kite flying, the kite making, all of these skills require mathematics, and we must make it more practical, and so that's part of it. So training, retraining, and we've engaged UE, we've engaged other university partners across the region to ensure that that's put in place. So that's going to be on stream. We've also engaged the Commonwealth of Learning for further training, right? And we're working with, I think it's ACT, I don't remember the acronym, but it's in collaboration with, again, the University of the West Indies to ensure further training of teachers. What we're also going to have, for the first time, we are going to have specialized teaching of mathematics at the primary level. We did have that in 1 or 2 schools, but it was at the distinct judgment of the principal in 1 or 2 schools. But we are moving forward, and we are going to start rolling out in 14 of our primary schools specialized mathematics teaching. In other words, you must have the content, you must be trained in math, you must have the content, and you will teach mathematics across the entire primary school, because what obtains right now, Madam President, is that every teacher teaches everything across the primary level. And we see that as a loophole, as an avenue where we can where several of the deficiencies in mathematics have been crystallized. So if a teacher is not particularly competent in this particular area in mathematics, chances are they may gloss over it, or they may just give the children assignments. And so over time, some of these deficiencies could become crystallized. So but we want to make sure the people we use at the primary level, where they are most sponge-like, the students that is, they are being taught by persons who have the content, who are trained in the pedagogy, and are able to deliver it well. And so we are confident that this strategy over time is going to be a good yield. So that's the math symposium and strategy. I want to say also, we have happening right now in Grenada for the first time the hosting of the Caribbean Association of Principals of Secondary Schools, CAPS, as it's called, and that is led by our own. The president of CAPS is our local, who is the president of GAPS, which is the Grenada Association of Principals of Secondary School, Dr. Diane Abel Jeffrey, and they are hosting principals from across the region right now. I was able to be with them for the opening ceremony, but this week has been extremely busy, even with graduations and all the other activities we've been having. So I haven't been able to get to many of the other activities, but I'm aware, and I've been receiving reports that it's been going quite well. Yeah? So help me with this. So we welcome all of the principals from the region to Grenada, and we do hope that they have a fantastic conference. Madam President, I'm happy to report as well that the Ministry of Education has received confirmation from the Cabinet to go ahead and procure devices for, not devices, let me be specific, military grade quality devices for Form 1 and 2 students going into secondary schools. And in addition to that, we are also going to procure electronic copies of the books that are on the book list. Now this is significant because formally we've made attempts, or formally attempts were made to have ebooks, but those ebooks were not aligned with the book list. So you had ebooks with content material that obviously could have been used, could have been adapted, but they were not aligned to the book list. So the uptake for that was never strong because it turned out to be double work for our teachers. It turned out to be the teacher having to say, well, in your textbook, it's on page 12, and in the ebooks, it's on page 40. And so we found that from our review that that was one of the factors contributing to the poor level of uptake. And so we are happy to announce that the books that are on the book list for Form 1s and 2s, we are going to provide the device. In fact, now let me not just say provide. We are going to sell at a very cheap cost. You're going to pay to own. It won't be anything that is prohibitive, but we have found that when people pay, even if it's $1 for something, there's a greater sense of ownership and responsibility. But when you own it, it will become yours, right? It will not be, and it will be a one-off. Whether we charge you $100 and you get a laptop that ordinarily was $1,500, we just know that you will value the $100 you paid for it. But we will tell you what those figures are, and you will pay to own, and the ministry won't have the responsibility to continuously repair. So we pray then that you would take care of the devices, but the ebooks would be available there, so be aware. The rest of the book program continues as has been, so the books within the program will circulate and would be available. The ministry will make releases to that effect as well. I want to report also, Madam President, that at this time the Ministry of Education has a community library summer program. It's taking place in the community libraries in St. David, St. John, and River Sally. At the moment we have over 100 young students between the ages of 7 to 12 gathered in those library facilities actively participating in this program. And the program runs from the 14th of July to the 31st. This is happening as we speak. And it aims to ignite a passion for literacy, to provide unique opportunities for exploration of reading material, to generate renewed interest in our own community libraries. So in the absence of the National Library, which eventually would come, we are making good use of our community libraries, and we thank our community librarians and the Ministry of Education staff for pushing and presenting. Yeah? The Ministry of Education expresses huge thanks and appreciation to all of our partners, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Climate Resilience, the Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority for collaborating to see the library summer project take place. There are a lot more things I can share, Madam President, but I would rest with those few just to be brief. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator, Minister. I know you do have a very active ministry. May I say that we don't have a military in Grenada, and I think militarism is not particularly a great institution. So military grade equipment could be replaced by the concept of higher grade. Right, we leave that military language out of it. Thank you. Quite serious about that. And I am excited about the math symposium. So I'm going to give you some kudos on that, because the figures reported prior was really dismal of pass marks in math. And I was listening carefully to figure out if if the symposium was on strategy or was overall, or if it was really on the capacity to teach for learning math. And then you spoke about the fact that math will be taught by specialized math teachers in primary school. That has to be well received. I don't know, times have changed, because I think I learned my best math in primary school. And it wasn't from any specialized math teacher, but if that's the case, we have to inculcate a learning and competence in and love for math in the primary school. So congratulations and for that and all the other wonderful things you reported and those yet to be reported. I thank you. And I pass the floor to Senator Salim Rahman. You have the floor, Senator.
Thank you, Madam President, and good morning to fellow colleagues, those listening at home and abroad. Pleasant good morning to all. I would like to commend my colleagues on their ministerial the information that they have just given us with regard to what's going on in their particular ministries. Especially, I could start with the Ministry of Education. Math has a direct implication on business and trade. And when you focus on the foundation of math at the primary school levels, and you have what has just been announced as specialized classes in math, you then change the next generation. And we have seen many of us have spoken about this, and we're happy to see that that change is being implemented there. But we also know that socially, there are poor lifestyle habits within the homes. Many homes, children don't receive this type of support even from their parents, and they are bad actors in the community, on the blocks and so forth. And so for that young child, it is extremely important not only to deliver the subject material, but also through social services, as I've mentioned before, to deliver what they don't necessarily get at home, which is a strong sense of morality and a strong sense of what is right and what is wrong. So that must go together to help the personality to develop properly. I want to commend the initiative of the 4th Annual Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum. Trade and investment is what will take a nation out of poverty. Trading is what will lift the communities, the inner communities, and businesses, people in that community out of poverty. This is an opportunity. Although it is spearheaded by the government, it really doesn't matter who's spearheading it. The fact is that you're going to have people from the continent of Africa coming to Grenada. I have been in contact with people from Guyana. There are business people coming from Guyana to this forum. And if business people come from Guyana and from the region to this forum and asking me about hotels and helping them in that area, what about our Grenadian people? Many times we have something right in front of us and we can't see it. We don't see the importance of it until we see how it is benefiting others. We say, oh Lord, I wish I knew, you know. So we don't want to have regrets. And that's why I want to mention it again, the importance of going there to open new doors. meet people that you would have never met before. Have conversations with them, develop connections with them. It may not translate into business now, but it may translate into friendships, which when you then visit, you will develop business initiatives and partnerships with people. We have a problem for funding in our small island states. And in bigger countries, they have more access to funding, and in many cases, cheaper funding. And we all know that 60% of the world's resources come from Africa. So I just want to reemphasize this, what the minister said with regard to this forum, and its importance for all Grenadians that want to do business, or even those that just want to meet and to develop a relationship with brothers and sisters on the continent of Africa. With regard to Carnival, it concerns me the disregard for our roadways, not only when it's Carnival time, when it's end of year, Christmas time, when there's generally we have seen people parking, blocking roads, and to go to a fete with disregard for the vehicular traffic and our emergency services and the rest of us who need to get to go where we need to go. And I say that because there is a real cost to business. Every year, many businesses sponsor bus shelters all over the country. And every year, in addition to having to repaint their businesses, they have to spend money to, in many cases, redo signs and infrastructure because of vandalism in these same bus shelters and their businesses. So I think I would like to mention that at least the police step up their role with regard to protection of public property. Businesses do so as well, have your cameras and so on. And to make sure that we don't have a lot of losses during that time. Also, drunkenness and the fact that many people drive while intoxicated is not okay. It's one thing to consume, it's another thing to consume and endanger the life of other people on the road. And so whilst we celebrate and we have a good time and we welcome our visitors, it is not okay to drive drunk. And I think the government needs to invest in breathalyzer equipment and other such equipment. Have the laws, the necessary laws to back it up to make sure that we don't have drunk drivers on our roads and driving our buses and our children and so forth. And finally, with regard to the safety of our nation's children, when we have fetes around Carnival time, we usually have a lot of fetes in pastures and open spaces. And that has been part of the culture for decades. But there is no system of vetting. So when our Minister for Education speaks about safety of children, if a child goes up at a bar to buy an alcoholic drink, there is no system available for vetting the age of that child, because we know that women mature faster than men physically. And some of these girls might be 15, 14, and they look 18, 19, 20. So there's no system. And a lot of girls in particular could get caught. And then we have, the social services have to deal with it 9 months later. So I think something has to be done in that area where the people who are holding the fetes and the bartenders are held responsible. They want to make money having this fete and that fete. You can't just sell to anybody. We have laws. So these are some of the things that come to mind based on the presentations this morning, and I just want to share these thoughts. I thank you.
I thank you for your responses, your very cautious and caring responses to the reports you've heard, Senator Rahman. And I join you in all that you've said regarding the exercise of caution and responsibility, and the both on the part of parents, business persons, and the general public. I also join you in welcoming the Africans, but we will leave that for later. Let the senatorial or ministerial reports continue with a request for the floor from the young and distinguished Senator Civil Francis. You have the floor, Senator.
Thank you, Madam President. Allow me to say pleasant morning to all of my colleagues in this honorable House, both on the opposition side and our strangers in our midst in the gallery, and even more special welcome to every one of you, and thank you for being here this morning to witness the Senate debate and presentation. Madam President, I just want to touch on a few updates that will be coming from our ministry. All things considered, I want to start off by wishing the participants, our young people, who will be journeying to St. Vincent to participate in the Windward Island School Games. I know that they are going to do an amazing job, and they are going to make us very, very, very proud. And to the coaches and the different adults accompanying them, I wish them all the best, and I thank them so much for their service and their dedication to sports development in Grenada. In addition to that, Madam President, while we're on sports, I want to also commend the National Sports Council. They've been doing an amazing job in poking their head out from where they've been, and they've been fully engaged and immersed in their obligations. And this year they have partnered with the Division of Youth in the execution of the National Holiday Recreation Program, affectionately before it was named Camp Flame. So as a ministry, we've engaged our young people positively over the summer vacation, and I'm happy to report that the numbers have grown from last year to this year with over 800 participants. Parents, I am sure, they're very well satisfied to know that their children are in capable hands, engaging in positive activities over the summer vacation. What I am most impressed about this year with our holiday recreation program, Madam President, is the fact that it incorporates the sporting aspects. So sporting discipline from a wide cross-section. So that included basketball, swimming, the athletics. It's been a really amazing experience, and I know that the young people are really much enjoying that. On the 31st of this month, there will be the closing of the program, unfortunately, and I'm saying unfortunately here for the participants because I know it's something that they've been enjoying, but they will have the opportunity to showcase what they've been doing for the last couple of weeks. Outside of sports, I can tell you that these young people have been engaged in amazing things that will help them to become very productive citizens. So it's not just about the arts, but they've been learning candle making, they've been learning how to write calypso, they've been learning how to bake bread, and on top of that, there's an entrepreneurial aspect of that where they've been engaged by entrepreneurs learning how to market, how to build businesses, how to do all of those different things. So it's not just a summer program for fun, but it is one that will propel them to be productive citizens. And from last year, I can report that these young people have shared with me some of the products that they've made. In fact, on my desk, I hand lotions and body butters that they've shared with me, and without being told that it came from them, I really thought it was something that was bought at Bath and Body Works, for example. Really amazing products. So our young people are inspired and they're doing really great work, and I commend our team at the Division of Youth and the Division of Sports for executing this at the highest level. I also want to report that Carriacou and Petite Martinique, they have recently concluded their national youth elections. I know Grenada, we have our national youth parliamentarians from our Grenada, our mainland, and Carriacou was not a part of that because of the passage of Hurricane Beryl. But I'm happy to report that Ms. Casey Boson has emerged victorious, and she will be joining the National Youth Parliamentarians representing the beautiful sister islands of Carriacou and Petite Martinique. So congratulations to you, Senator Cox, also. You now have representation in the Youth Parliament of Grenada. Madam President, I also want to touch on the Community Grant Fund, and that was something that was highlighted in my budget presentation. We have an allocation for access to Community Grant Fund, where our community groups, youth groups, church groups, once you belong to a community group, you have access to grant funding from our ministry and the Division of Youth particularly, to undertake sustainable projects within the community. And so far we've had 5 approved community youth groups, and they have already begun executing their projects. So congratulations to those 5 community groups, and we are putting a call out for the other community groups to engage and to take advantage of that. Madam President, I also want to wish Ms. Kerry-Ann Marast, one of our Commonwealth Youth Council members. She will be journeying to Nambia to participate in the Youth Consultative Dialogue, and that is scheduled from the 4th to the 8th of August, as I mentioned previously, in Nambia, and we wish her all the best, and I know that Grenada will be represented at the highest level because she is indeed an exceptional young lady, and our future in Grenada as it relates to leadership and women involvement is really shooting out, and I am very, very proud for that. Madam President, I also want to inform this Honorable House that we also have 2 CARICOM or CSME Youth Ambassadors, and that is Mr. Kwesi Pope. He was one of the candidates for the National Youth Parliament, but he did not emerge victorious. And myself. So Mr. Pope and I, we have been to the CARICOM Secretariat where we spent a week thereabout undertaking some trainings to ensure that, and I think Senator Rahman will be very proud to know that our involvement is to help increase awareness in the opportunities that exist for trade across our region. So it's not yet completed. We still have some more trainings that we're undergoing for the next couple months, but by October we will be fully acknowledged as CSME ambassadors for Grenada, along with our other colleagues youth colleagues across the region. So the future looks bright for trade in Grenada, and I look forward to, myself and Mr. Pope look forward to working along with you, Honorable Rahman, to ensure that our young people understand how important and the opportunities that exist for them as it relates to trading across our region and the free movement of goods, services, and our people. Madam President, as the senator responsible, or the parliamentary secretary responsible for youth, I think it will be very remiss of me to not take this opportunity to wish our young people all the very best for the carnival season. But most importantly, Madam President, to encourage them, or remind us rather, that there is life after carnival. And I want us to be responsible in all of our undertakings throughout the carnival season. You can have fun, but it does not have to be one that will be at our detriment. At the end of the day, as young people, we have a country to build. We have a generation to inspire, and we want to ensure that you are in the best capacity, functioning that is, after Carnival, to take our country where it needs to be. And to everyone else in here, happy Emancipation, and I wish us all the very best for the festive season. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Seville Francis. Thank you very much. And you're absolutely right. Young people, hear this call. You have a country to build and a generation to inspire. Keep yourself in good shape to do that. Senator Roderick St. Clair, De Nuevo, once again.
Thank you, Madam President. And so it's good to hear these ministerial statements, notwithstanding the call for us to finish early. Yeah, that's the call. But two important points I want to flag, Madam President, in Senator Francis's presentation. One, the issue of the youth parliament. As parliamentarian ourselves, we have to commend her for what she has been leading, and of course closing the gap with Carriacou is one part, but also that they continue to be given all the support that they need so that they can learn and set new examples and new trends for the future of this country. It's not about us alone, it's part of succession planning. It doesn't mean that they would automatically end up in the parliament per se, because we have a competitive election, people have to go to voting, etc. But of course, there's also senatorial appointments on the other hand. And so we trust that that they are given all the support, and that they also look at being also subject specialists in certain areas, monitoring certain areas, so that they become specialized, so that maybe if they're not in a competitive part of it, they can able to be appointed in different senatorial positions based on the various expertise that they were able to bring forth to the table. So I see all of this, so you have a whole person as we move forward. The other point I want to raise is the issue of the community grant funds. Notwithstanding statements might be made to it, it will be helpful if Senator Francis could maybe refresh our mind, how does one access, because I think that statement you would have made would have conjured new sort of energies that how do we access these funds? 5 groups, and I'm sure we have over 50 different groups in this country that might be wondering how do we apply, what's the maximum amount of funds that they can access. It might be a simple thing as go on a website or call the ministry. What might be some of the eligible area, and also most of all the issue of accountability for these funds, because not because it's grant funds you have to account for it. I mean, I myself, at the GCNA we write projects, we get grant funds, but we have to account for it with the bills and records and everything, and reconcile that those activities have taken place, and audit of the monitoring that what we said we spending money on actually exists, and then the impact afterwards. I raise all of this to say that I trust that this approach consists of those qualities such that persons don't feel it's just free money given to community groups. And so on. I know a lot of groups may not properly be registered and so on, otherwise we may force that. I wouldn't at this stage be hard and fast, but once there is some level of cohesion, and then you help to build, because sometimes we try to do all of those other parts and we become like the World Bank and the IMF and shoot our own foot and kill the intention of what we really, the spirit of the intention, but we build them that in year 1, year 2 or so, they become more structured such that they can access funding at other global levels where those things would be mandated. So I wanted to share and also seek some update on that area. Thank you.
I thank you, Senator St. Clair. I think this, your extension of salutations and your call or reminders around accountability brings to an end the presentations. No, it does not. I see a light on. Request for the floor from the distinguished gentleman from Carriacou.
Thank you.
And Pitimatnik.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, no, I just stand to bring a little bit of clarity and for us going forward. I didn't want to stop anybody in their flight in terms of the responses to the ministerial statements, but just to kind of keep things in order in the sense that the ministerial statements really and truly ought not to be a subject of debate in the House, but is an opportunity for members to decide if you have a question or some clarification from what is presented, that should happen. And so just, suggestions and back and forth on ministerial statements should not really happen as based on this.
Where does it say that, Senator? I understand your sentiment.
Well,
proceed.
No, I'm saying that in the sense for us to arrest this because we can have a debate and back and forth on the ministerial statements. While the standing orders may be somewhat silent on it, is something that you don't want to start a bit, but it's a great opportunity for if there's a question from the ministerial statement, so some clarity. So I'm just saying that so that persons on this side, because I know that the other side is very agitated when Senator Roderick St. Clair puts on his light, So I am just saying that for us to just keep things tight. But it's a great opportunity for question, clarification, and so that members know that it's not a subject for debate. Yeah?
Senator Cox, I thank you for your recommendations on tightening. You come from a quadrille culture, which is the African call and response. If there's a call, there's going to be a response. If there's a quadrille move A, there's going to be a quadrille move B. And maybe that is what you perceive, and you may be quite right, that is what is happening. So, colleagues, in the spirit of quadrille and call and response, keep it short. Keep it short. Questions, clarifications. You can tell I'm enjoying myself because I'm learning so much about what's happening in the government sector, and it's encouraging by and large. I want to close this section out, since we've spent a good solid hour on it, by finally welcoming the visitors to Grenada for the conference, the African Caribbean Investment and Trade Conference, and wish all the visitors a happy stay and a productive conferencing. And may I also finally welcome back Senator, the Honorable Mayana Charles, back. Thank you, and I'm happy that you are returned through what has transpired. And I also want to welcome in the gallery, King's Counsel Ruggles Ferguson and Madam, whose name I am not aware of. So welcome to all the legal minds joining us as we switch gears. Oops, I did forget to say that I received a written apology from Senator Andre Lewis, who is out of state on business and is unable to join us. Thank you, and I have one more announcement at the end.
Item number 8, presentation of papers and reports from select committees.
Leader of Government Business, Senator Thomas.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I rise to present the following papers and reports from selected committee. We've got 4 of them here. Number 1, Grenada Citizenship by Investment Report to Grenada Houses of Parliament for the reporting period the 1st of January 2024 to the 30th of June 2024. Number 2, Grenada Citizenship by Investment Report to Grenada Houses of Parliament for the reporting period the 1st of July 2024 to the 31st of December 2024. Number 3, the National Insurance Board Annual Report for 2023 and the National Insurance Board Annual Report for 2024.
Thank you, Senator Thomas. Distinguished senators, these 4 reports are laid before you. Any discussions? Hearing none, we will proceed. There is a request for the floor. Senator Roderick Sinclair.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you. I want to focus. First thing I want to say is that we have to commend the different agencies for submitting this requirement and complying with the requirement of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. And of course, we urge many of the others who are not up to date to please be up to date with the information. It's part of the governance structure. Page 15, Madam President and members of the NIS report 2024, I wanted to make a few comments, and that I think that is under the, just check, I think there's a heading for that. I think that heading is the director's report, I think it is. But there are a few things on that page I wanted to just spot on.
Please give the reference again.
Yeah, page 15.
Of which report?
The 2024 NIS annual report. Yeah, page 15. And there are a few points that catch my attention. There specifically, there's a subheading called registration activity, and it speaks in terms of the number of employers and employees that are member, because we know the sustainability of this insurance has to do with numbers. It's a numbers game. How many numbers we have, how many employees, how many employers are part of this, such that we can be able to get enough funds coming in, notwithstanding the adjustment with the age and also the contribution amount. And what is important for me in that section was the second sentence in that section, which speaks about there were 636 self-employed individual registering in 2024. I am not too sure if that 636 is part of the 1064 employers, or if the 1068 new employers that were registered in 2024, if you have to add it to the 636 as this self-employed. But either way, I want to commend the individuals who would have taken to self-register, because most time you wait for your employer to register and to bring NIS benefit, but the opportunity for individuals to do it themselves. And of course, particularly in my informal sector, agriculture, fisheries, that sector, I keep urging that persons need to register. It's good for them, for their wives, for their children, now and in the future, and for themselves. And so this 636 to me is a good number. And when you look at the age and of persons for employment in the country, etc., that is not a. My good friend Senator Lewis might be able to give me percentage of the workforce and all of those things, but I think this seems to be a pretty good number. Although it speaks that the self-employed individual registered in 2024, it's 17.6% increase compared to the previous year. So that means NIS is doing a good work, and it means that persons are seeing the benefit of coming on board, notwithstanding the increases in the contribution. And we have to commend them, and if the trend is going that way, we trust that others will see something good in this. So this is a very important part, I think, that is need to be flagged. The other part on that same page has to do with the section that speaks of investment, where we know that we would have adjusted the bill for statutory bodies such that they can invest in different portfolios. That was done sometime a year or two ago. And so what we see here is that the NIS has moved strategically to find new opportunities. And as I mentioned on the same page, that is a strategic decision to get involved. In fact, if you look at the second column on page 15, so it's directly opposite where it says registration activities. On the other side of it, it says in that paragraph, as part of the strategic goal, a tactical decision was made to allocate a greater portion of short-term investment to the U.S. Treasuries, U.S. Treasury bonds, U.S. Treasury bills. So just in the second column on the same page, so you come down, you come down to that paragraph as part of the strategic. Now, this is good, but at the same time, we know what is happening within the whole global space and also within the U.S., and we trust that the brokers that are used, it's a long name, so I wouldn't try to repeat it, that the brokers will do justice and ensure that we don't have any challenges, because if there is challenges with short-term borrowing, then the negative impact would be very quick on us when we're looking maybe 90 days or 30 days to get back return. Then the return might be much less, because especially with the uncertainties in the whole global economy. The long term, you might say, okay, there might be recovery. So I trust that our local investment committee is looking at that. And then the last comment I want to make on this is very interesting. There's a graph there, investment portfolio. But what is important, below the graph, there is some writing. And it speaks to the NIS also moving away from, because you know that there was once upon a time, NIS was buying up lands in Grenada all over the place. It's good to have, but I guess maybe they have been advised that land price will only get thus far, and in real terms, not readily convert to cash if there's any challenges that they may face in terms of liquidity, free cash flow. So they have moved away, they are moving away from this real estate land business and selling out, and maybe using this money to do all these other investments. but also they are focusing a lot on lending to members so they themselves maybe can borrow the money and buy the land, build a house, do the business, which is good. And so I smiled when I see that some $97 million it says here, it also reinforces our commitment to providing competitive value-driven finance solution. As of the 31st of December, the total value of loans approved amounted to $97 million. How does that compare to the commercial banks? How does that compare to the credit union? And how does that compare to the quote-unquote infamous GDB is another story. And so I say this, that the NIS, again, had to be commended with going into that market bold to create new opportunities for us as citizens, but also for the insurance board itself. And they have to be commended on that, and I think that they have to be supported because it is for the members, all the 100,000 members of the NIS. And if there is any ways to me that the regulations can be even changed and updated to make them become more able to provide more financing for members, not non-members, for members, then I think that that is commendable because to me what I'm seeing here is a lot better than what we are seeing with our own GDP in terms of making cash available for our citizens. That is the page I wanted to focus on because I think that constitutes the essence of the mandate. I thank you.
I thank you. I thank you for your careful reading of the report. And through the President, we want to thank the NIS for the report and for the work that leads to this caliber of report. And I want to recommend to you, Senator Sinclair, that you pay a visit to the head of NIS, the board, but the executive director, Mr. Cornwall, and converse with him. I'm sure he'd be delighted to receive you and to hear of your commendations and recommendations. Thank you. All reports are considered laid. I think I see the light of Senator Rahman. You have the floor, Senator.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll be brief. So just to add some clarity for my colleague on my left, Senator Sinclair, if you look, he mentioned, spoke about page 15. If you go down to page 22, I believe it is, of that same 2024 report, NIS report, you will see there the newly registered employers by parish. And you will see a wider set of information from 2020. So you see the total amount of employers for 2020 was 676, then it went to 928 in 2021. Bearing in mind these were COVID times. So a lot of small businesses would have gone out of business. So that's not a real true reflection 2020, 2021 of the economy. Then in 2022, when things kick-started, you can see there were a lot more businesses that were reopened at the end of the COVID period. So that's 1553. And then you see it settle back down because competition sets in and so on. You see in 2023 it goes down to 1223, and in 2024, 1,068. So basically from 2022, the total amount of registered employers by parish, total amount of employees in Grenada went from 1,500 to 2024 down to 1,068. So that means that there are about 500 less businesses operating in Grenada over the last 2 years. However, when we look at impact on the economy, on NIS rather, we see that during the same period, if you scroll down below on page 20, so that was page 21. If you scroll down to page 22, 23, if you scroll along to page 23, you see that newly registered employees by parish, you see that the figure has pretty much remained consistent. So you see in 2022, there were 3,203 employees registered with NIS. And in 2024, there's still 3,018. So what that means is that although businesses closed down, and a lot of small businesses went out of business, the bulk of those people were still retained. So people have found employment in other businesses. And so the amount is still pretty much the same. In 2023, it dipped to 2,671, but in 2024, it went back up to 3,018. So it means the numbers from 2022 to 2024 of employees contributing to NIS pretty much consistent. So that, I think I just want to mention that, that difference, point out that. And in terms of investments, I see here that, going back to page 15 that my colleague, Senator St. Clair was speaking from, on the Treasury side, as an investment vehicle, generally, you know, whilst many of us may not agree with or like what is being done in the world in terms of wars and so on, and who supports it and the countries that support it, in terms of treasuries, the U.S. Treasury have been very stable over the years in terms of investment. And Japan holds the largest amount of U.S. treasuries in the world, and seconded by China. So when you see a lot of the so-called trade wars that you see between the U.S. and China and tariffs, that's just to get a bigger piece of the pie. The U.S. wants a bigger piece of the pie. But that does not in any way mean that they're going to abandon one another's economy, because they're heavily invested in one another's economy. China is the second largest holder of U.S. debt. So I just wanted to point that out. So this is relatively safe, but I would like to see more investment in Caribbean bonds rather than foreign bonds. I just want to put that out. So that's my preliminary comments on that, on the NIS. And in regard to the citizenship by investment reports, which has the Prime Minister's name on it, so he's responsible for that area. We see some consistency. So I was looking at the number of citizenships issued for the 2023 and 2024, and we see that it is basically consistent, although was projected in the budget to dip in 2025. So we'll see with the next report how that looks. So I just want to let the nation know, to clarify a few things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. And I know we're racing, and there's much, however, for discussion in these reports. The inference that I would draw from the first set of comments you made, joined to that of Senator St. Clair, is that while the NIS is doing well, small businesses could be at risk for their survival. And therefore, if the conference on Monday is under the theme of, resilience and rejuvenation, I can't recall exactly, then that's a signal for Caribbean investors, as well as investors from Africa and beyond, to invest in small and medium-sized businesses in Grenada. I think that is a message that comes clearly from these financial reports that are circulating across the country, at least one of the messages. Thank you. Madam.
Item number 9, petitions. Item number 10, government notices. Item number 11, unofficial notices. Item number 12, questions. Item number 13, personal explanations. Item number 14, motions. Item number 15, bills.
About to get on his feet, Leader of Government Business, Senator the Honorable Adrian Thomas.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I beg to introduce the first reading of a bill for an act shortly entitled the Constitution, Oath of Allegiance, Amendment Number 1, Bill 2025.
A bill with 6 to amend Schedule 3 to the Constitution and Schedule 1 to the Court's order to change the oath of allegiance from His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors to Grenada, shortly entitled Constitution, Oath of Allegiance, Amendment Number 1, Bill 2025.
Senator Adrian Thomas.
Madam President, I beg to move that the relevant standing orders of the Senate be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all its stages at this sitting.
Honorable members, the question is that the relevant standing orders of the Senate be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all its stages at this sitting. All those who are of that opinion say aye. And all those who are of the contrary opinion say nay. Senator Thomas, Adrian Thomas, I withdraw the call for a vote.
Madam President, I beg to move that the second reading of the bill be taken at this time.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. All those in favor say aye, and those opposed say nay. Passed. Honorable Thomas, Senator Thomas.
Thank you, Madam President. And Madam President, I am pleased to inform this Honorable House that I do have the Speaker's certificate to proceed with this bill. Madam President, this bill seeks to amend Schedule 3 of the Constitution and Schedule 1 to the Court's order to change the oath of allegiance from His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors, to Grenada. Madam President, this bill contains 6 clauses. The first clause deals with the short title and the commencement of this very important bill. And Madam President, in regards to the commencement of this bill, it is our view, it is our hope that the first day of August 2025 will be the date for commencement of this historic bill. Clause 2 deals with interpretation. And if you read through the bill, Madam President, we'll see clear interpretation for the term oath, the Constitution, and the court order. The most important, Madam President, is Clause 3. Clause 3, Madam President, amendment of Schedule 3 to the Constitution is what it will focus on. Schedule 3 to the Constitution and the Oath of Allegiance is amended by deleting the words His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors, and substituting, therefore, the word Grenada. Madam President, long overdue. It's something we have been dreaming of for many decades, and it's something that we are quite happy on this very historic day today to stand up and be part of. Madam President, the sections affected in the Constitution relates to the Governor General taking the oath, Section 20. Members of the House of Parliament taking the oath, Madam President, Section 40. Ministers or parliamentary secretaries taking the oath, Section 65. And Section 95, subsection 1, deals with citizens by marriage taking the oath. Madam President, and in this particular clause, we have Section 98, which deals with citizens by marriage taking the oath. In Clause 4, Madam President, it deals with the amendment of Schedule 1 to the Court Order. Schedule 1 to the Court Order is amended in the Oath of Allegiance and the Affirmation of Allegiance by deleting the words, His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors, and substituting, therefore, the word Grenada. Another subsection in this clause, Madam President, it deals with the court order is amended in the oath for the execution of office and the affirmation for due execution of the office by deleting the words, His Majesty King Charles III, and substituting, therefore, the word Grenada. We now move to Clause 5, Madam President, which deals with consequential amendments to every relevant written law other than in the Constitution and the Court Order. Madam President, in this particular clause, where in any written law other than in the Constitution and the Court Order provision is made or taken the oath, there appear in the oath the words, His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors. Those words shall be deleted and there shall be substituted, therefore, the word Grenada. Madam President, it goes further on to say, where in any written law other than in the Constitution and the court orders, provision is made for taking the oath for due execution of office, there appears in such oath the words, His Majesty King Charles III. Those words shall be deleted and there shall be substituted, therefore, the word Grenada. Later on, Madam President, within the clause, it says, where in any written law prescribing an oath, there appear the words, our sovereign Lord the King. Those words, Madam President, shall also be deleted, and there shall be substituted, therefore, the words, the people of Grenada. And finally, within that clause, Section 9 of the Oath Act, Cap 217 of the 2010 Revised Laws of Grenada, is repealed. And the final clause, Clause 6, transitional provision as to the oath of allegiance. Madam President, it outlines and the expiry of 12 hours immediately following commencement of the appointed day, the oath of allegiance sworn or solemnly affirmed to by any functionary prior to the appointed day shall cease to have force. And such functionary shall within 7 days immediately following the commencement of the appointed day swear or solemnly affirm to the oath of allegiance, which shall come into force with effect from the commencement of the appointed day, provided that if for any reason any functionary did not swear or solemnly affirm to the oath of allegiance within those said 7 days, such functionary shall be deemed to have sworn as solemnly affirmed thereto immediately upon the expiry of those said 7 days. Madam President, this is a big step that we are about to take in Grenada. And yesterday I had the chance, Madam President, to witness, despite the little discussion that was taking place, to witness a sense of unity within our society. Madam President, it was pleasant. I went to the Groovy Soca Monarch last night feeling good. And I came here this morning even feeling better, knowing that when I saw the results of the vote yesterday in the other place, it tells me that if we take our time just to think a little, we can do great things for this beautiful land of ours. The result yesterday was 14 MPs voted in favor of the bill, despite we had 15 present initially. But, Madam President, this is good. And this is happening, Madam President, as we prepare to commemorate Emancipation Day on the 1st of August. It is fitting, Madam President, that we reflect on what brought about emancipation. But sometimes we present, and we are guilty of it, we present this piece of history as if life started with slavery and there was nothing before. So we start from slavery and then we go to independence, emancipation. But Madam President, I want us to pay attention that before slavery was introduced to this part of the world, we had peaceful inhabitants going about their business on a daily basis. So when emancipation came about, it was reinstituting that peaceful life that the inhabitants of this land was enjoying. And therefore, Madam President, it is important to make that point, especially when we're talking about emancipation. 1st of August 1834, I would like to look at it as reinstituting that life that we had. But Madam President, despite we'll be celebrating Emancipation Day, it is the beginning and the struggle continues. Because there's a need for we to liberate our institutions, our symbols, and our civic rituals from the shadows of colonial rule. I am happy to stand here today, Madam President, and also report that in the Ministry of Culture, presently as I speak, we have a committee to deal specifically with the naming and renaming of some of our buildings and roads and streets in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. This is part of the journey, Madam President. And I will not hesitate to say that we also have a committee well established and preparing to establish our National Heroes Park. I would not say where it is located because we're still discussing that. And also a monument for the Grenadian soldiers who died during the invasion of Grenada. So we are on that road, Madam President, to continue the process of emancipation, liberating some of our institutions, and to get our minds free in the true sense of the word. Madam President, this bill, which deals with the oath of allegiance, is more than ceremonial. Madam President, to pledge allegiance to the British monarch is to continue the legacy of imperial subordination. And this, Madam President, we believe is consistent with what we are known for, our resilience, our sense of self-reliance, independence, national dignity, and the sovereign will of the Grenadian people. Today, Madam President, is over 50 years of independence and almost 200 years since the formal abolition of slavery. It is high time for this nation to assert itself. It is high time for we to take ownership Madam President, by replacing the colonial oath with a pledge of allegiance to Grenada, it's one of the greatest ideals we can achieve as a nation. And in 1834, while the chains was physically removed, we know that in our minds and in some of our institutions, the chains were still there. And sometimes it's a sad story to tell our children. Because they will ask you the question, how can we genuinely celebrate liberation while reciting the oaths to the descendants of those who once presided over our enslavement? And as one of the Caribbean historian, Professor Vernon Shepherd, reminds us, emancipation is not completed until the structures of colonialism have been dismantled. And therefore, despite we are still talking about emancipation, it's a process, Madam President, and the process must continue. In Africa, they will say, a luta continua. And therefore, we must pay attention to that. A new oath of allegiance, Madam President, should commit every Grenadian citizen and public servant to do three things. One, uphold the Constitution of Grenada. Two, serve the people with dignity. And three, protect the sovereignty and integrity of our nation. Madam President, I would like to reflect also and maybe paraphrase one of our great Caribbean hero, Marcus Garvey, when he said, "A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots." We know our past. We'll honor it on Emancipation Day. But now, we must ensure that our future is firmly rooted in our own soil, not in the legacy of the monarchy. And as we say in Grenada, the cow that drink water from the same stream whole day, bound to know where it belongs. If you have not heard this in Grenada before, come to St. David, come to Vincent's, come to Chamfleur, come to Monk Chancwell, come to Child Island. And you will hear this comment, and it means a lot to us. Madam President, it is time for Grenada to drink from its own stream, swear by its own name, and walk boldly in the future, fully free, fully sovereign, and proudly Grenadian. Madam President, I must re-emphasize the camaraderie that this Honorable House has exhibited over the last 3 years. I enjoy being here. And you can see, Madam President, every sitting, there is no long sour face inside it. We look each other in the eyes and we smile to each other. We debate, but we are able to dine together. And I believe that this process will continue because we respect each other inside this place. Many bills we came here with, Madam President. Many bills. I have heard it from the senators on the other side. We support. We think it's a good idea. And you feel happy for that. Those where we don't get 100% support, we discuss it. We debate it. And the debate does not finish inside here. It continues on the corridor. It continues in the lunchroom. Even when we depart, there is no hard feelings among each other. And I think that this very bill we are talking about here today, Madam President, we are debating and discussing, is a bill that I believe will get 100% support in this honorable House. And we will show the Grenadian people that we can unite in their own interests, that we can unite in building and being the architect of a country where each one of us can be proud of. So, Madam President, having said this, I now commend this historical bill to this honorable House for a meaningful discussion and debate, and ultimately approval. And I wish that when I leave here today, I can say, never again must we bow to foreign power or foreign sovereignty. I thank you.
I thank the Leader of Government Business. For his historic presentation. The floor is open. And I offer the floor to Senator Dwight Horsford. Senator.
Thank you, Madam President. And good morning to my colleagues. Madam President, I rise to
be the first in the batting order on our side to say that I will gladly take an oath to Grenada. Gladly. Indeed, every time we sing the national anthem, we're taking an oath to Grenada. But unlike my good friend on the other side, I was not dreaming of taking an oath. I was dreaming, and I am still dreaming, of the Republic of Grenada. Well, Madam President, there is much symbolic importance in what we are undertaking here today. And I understand that there was a joint position in the other place as to how engagement with our brothers and sisters in the public is to proceed, or wider engagement, I should say, is to proceed. Some say that is a little bit before behind, but that is water under the bridge, really. Now, as we take this oath in its new form officially, I would ask us, as I try myself to do, is to keep your feet planted on the ground, realistically, planted on the ground. Because as you engage with a very discerning public, there will be questions that you'll have to answer. And quite legitimate questions. In fact, I have been encountering them from colleagues and friends. And they are respectable queries, I should say, speaking for myself. And I say keep your feet planted on the ground, notwithstanding the symbolic importance of what we are seeking to achieve here. Because the reality is, precious little would be altered other than the oath. I gladly take it. No self-respecting patriot would not. But immediately after you take the oath for the due execution of office. And as recently as yesterday, I had to deal with a question posed to me. That right after you're taking an oath horse, you're swearing right after to uphold, honor, and preserve a constitution with a king in it. And for a moment, it appeared that we were going in a circle. But, Madam President, the framers of the Constitution thought it best not to
give us any difficulty in relation to the oath. And so I don't see much in the debate of whether there should be a referendum or not. What I do think is important, as part of the democratic process and bringing our people along with not just the idea, the imperative of constitutional reform, is substantial and continued engagement with them. There's no escaping that. That must be done. And in that context, I commend Dr. Alexis and the CCR for what they have been trying to do, and I hope they continue. I hope they broaden their reach, membership, and discussion. Our young people must understand, first and foremost, what independence means. It is insufficient, not enough, and it will go nowhere other than the excitement and the exhalation in uttering words if all we do is deploy emotional sentiments of anti-colonial petulance. Because just as I encountered these real questions yesterday, you will have students who often come in the gallery and visit us and say, all right, happy we are, like I am. We're taking an oath to Grenada and the people of Grenada. But we come inside here and we look at a crown in the mace. And the formulation for enactment is King's Most Excellent Majesty. And we have a crown symbol almost as a substitute for coat of arms, as a symbol of state, the embodiment of state. Now in my profession and my colleagues, we would be able to wrestle with that and give some answers. But it is important to appreciate what the reality is and convince our people that all of this is not representative of you and me and us. But Madam President, it's a process. All of these things require a constant plodding march. And so I began by saying that I appreciate the powerful symbolism of taking the oath to Grenada. And so hand on heart, I support taking that oath. But my friend, and I don't mean to joust with you, we joust a lot, eh? But keep the feet on the ground. Because the character of the state hasn't changed and will not be changed by that. It is hoped, and I hope, there will be much upliftment psychologically and encouragement now, therefore, to engage in a serious Republican discussion. Because I will tell you frankly, I will feel as if I have been made a fool of if after this nothing comes and I see people gleefully jumping for King's New Year analysts and CBE and them thing. Because it would be meaningless, absolutely meaningless, unless we convince our people that the well of authority, the power to shape our destiny resides here with us, down in Rebellion, not by the King's most excellent majesty. So, Madam President, this is important indeed. But in our exuberance, temporary excitement, with the harsh reality that this is a work in progress. And this ain't even a baby step yet, because there's a mighty hurdle to cross, socially, psychologically, and politically out there. Because I ain't busting no bubble, but let me tell you, and people outside ain't bothering with us, and we out inside there now, you know. Don't bother with that, particularly around this time with these festivities. People thinking about cost of living through the roof, crime going up, how they making things happen for their families and so on. They ain't seen the importance of that. It's unfortunate, but I hope the agreed position of engagement is a real substantive anxious one too. And there's a determination, a will to carry through with that. Because this to me signals a broader and higher value that we must now seriously consider trying to reach. And so with these few remarks, I know my distinguished friend is anxious to go. I could see all his notes. I offer these brief remarks to this honorable House and my colleagues and say that, speaking for ourselves and for myself, hand on heart, I support taking, and I hope, an abiding oath to Grenada. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Horsford. Thank you very much. Grenada's Attorney General, Senator Claudette Joseph, you have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, right. Madam President, it is indeed with great pleasure, pride, and joy that I rise in this honorable House to give my unreserved support to the bill now being debated. And that, Madam President, is the Constitution Oath of Allegiance Amendment Bill number 1, 2025. And in simple terms, Madam President, this bill, once passed, will enter into force on 1st August 2025, and it will change the oath of allegiance in relation to persons who must take an oath of allegiance under Section 20 of the Constitution, that's the Governor General, Section 40, members of the Houses of Parliament, Section 65, ministers or parliamentary secretaries, Section 95(1), citizens by marriage, and Section 98, also citizens by marriage taking the oath. And Madam President, it will also change the oath of allegiance relating to judges of the court as prescribed in Schedule 1 of the court's order, and also in every relevant written law other than those mentioned before, where an oath is required to be taken, as prescribed by Schedule 1 to the Oaths Act, Chapter 217 of the Laws of Grenada. And that change, Madam President, to all these oaths will be from His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors, to simply Grenada, and by implication, and its people. So you could read Grenada to mean Grenada and its people. Madam President, these amendments to the relevant sections, well, I should not say to the relevant section, the amendments to Schedule 3 of the Constitution, we might consider a low-hanging fruit, and in fact, in all of the positive responses that we have had to this proposed change, we've also had comments to the effect that it took too long. Why didn't we do this before? That is a common expression we've had since discussions on these bills commenced. So, Madam President, we are satisfied that this change enjoys broad national support. And that is why, Madam President, yesterday in the lower house, all members, government and opposition, present and voted in favor of the passage of the bill. And in fairness to the one member who did not vote, he was not present when the vote was taken. That member made his presentation and had to depart early. So we had, Madam President, unanimous support. Even after a spirited debate, in the end, all members of Parliament did what is right by our collective conscience and what is right by the people of Grenada. and supported this bill. Madam President, there was among members in the other place an understanding that continued public discourse will happen after the passage of this bill, and we are committed to this. And Madam President, I am prepared to start with that discourse today by explaining to our listening and viewing public, and I wish good day to all of you listening on the various platforms, and helping to understand why there is no deficiency or flaw in the process that has been so far undertaken to pass these bills in the House, and why there will be no error on the part of the legislature to have these oaths of allegiance bills come into operation even as we engage in the public discourse that we agreed to. Madam President, that is because our Constitution at Section 39 speaks to how that Constitution might be altered. And the provisions of Section 39 means that essentially all of the provisions of our Constitution are entrenched, meaning that they cannot be changed in the same way as an ordinary act of Parliament can be changed. In the case of an ordinary act of Parliament, we all know an amendment is made simply by tabling a bill in the lower house, and once a simple majority approves that bill, it comes to this house, and once a simple majority approves it, it goes to the Governor General for assent, and when that assent occurs, it is published in the Gazette and becomes law. In the case of provisions of the Constitution, those provisions that are entrenched require a majority of 2/3 of the members of the House. So we have 15 members of the lower house. So at least 10 members of the lower house must vote in favor of a constitutional amendment, any constitutional amendment. We had that yesterday. In fact, we had all of the members voting in favor, save one who was absent. And then it comes to this house where a simple majority is required. And that's how a constitutional change is effected for provisions that are entrenched. And then there are provisions that are deeply entrenched. And those provisions require, after the process that I just described happening in the Parliament, it goes to the people in a referendum. And in that referendum, 2/3 of the persons voting in that referendum must vote in favor. And then, if that occurs, the change is effected. The change we are proposing to this Honorable House, Madam President, is not deeply entrenched. So for it to become law, all we need here to do today is, on a simple majority, approve the bill before this Honorable House, and then it goes to the Governor General for assent, and in this case, because it's a constitutional bill, it must be accompanied by a speaker's certificate when it goes to the GG for assent in accordance with Section 39(8) of the Constitution. Madam President, Schedule 1 to the Constitution specifies all of the provisions of the Constitution that are deeply entrenched, meaning that will require a referendum in order for them to be changed. The sections that we are proposing to amend today, Madam President, do not appear at Schedule 1 of the Constitution. That is, Sections 20, 40, 65, 95, 1, and 98, and also Schedule 1, or the first schedule, to the court's order. So, Madam President, a referendum is not needed for these changes to take effect. And this is, Madam President, confirmed also in a decision of our highest court, the Privy Council, out of the jurisdiction of Belize. And the name of the case is the Prime Minister of Belize, the Attorney General of Belize, and Alberto Velos and others. And part of what the court said in that decision, my lord, sorry, I switched to court mode now. Part of what that decision said, Madam President, is that if you have a situation where a referendum is not required, and it does occur, it would only be in value consultative or advisory. And where a referendum is not needed, the process of amending the Constitution could proceed in the normal way, whether a referendum was held or not, and regardless of the result. And I make that point for persons out there who still incorrectly suggest that to make this change, we need a referendum. We say we don't, but even if a referendum is held, because it is not needed, no matter the outcome, the law passed in this House in relation to these amendments will remain valid. And Madam President, despite what everyone or various people have been saying, there have been only a few nameless, faceless people who have, well, we don't even know if it's robotics or AI, but we've seen some written information suggesting that there is some opposition to replacing King Charles III, his heirs and successors, with Grenada when senior officers of government and the state take their oaths of allegiance and office. But all of the persons who have shown their faces and have made comments, I have seen none so far that suggest that this is not an appropriate bill for this honorable House to pass, and this was not an appropriate policy position for the government to have taken. Madam President, this is about a next step on the road to true independence and self-determination. This is about pride, national pride as a people. And for me, who was required to take the oath of office, I must confess I was quite uncomfortable to do so. It was a necessary act. But Madam President, I must say, I personally As a matter of personal pride, now I can't wait to retake the oath. And to do so, to Grenada and the people of Grenada. So, as we work, Madam President, towards celebrating Emancipation Day for the first time in our history, on the right day, the 1st of August, we look forward, Madam President, to this legislation coming into operation on Emancipation Day. And Madam President, I would submit to this Honorable House, Madam President, that while indeed this step is symbolic, it is also substantive. It is also substantive, and I too am one of those persons who wonder why we did not do this before. Dominica, for example, on attaining independence, went straight to being a republic and went straight to, of course, swearing allegiance to Dominica. The way our Constitution is set up, while we can effect this change without the need for a referendum, we can't do so in relation to becoming a republic. The relevant sections of the Constitution in relation to becoming a republic, changing our head of state, as I read them, require us to have a referendum. And interestingly, on the 2 occasions we tried, that issue was not put to the people. That was not one of the issues on the ballot paper. So we've never asked our people. Although all of the reports in constitution reform attempts, going back to 1985 with Justice Liverpool and Carol Bristol's the Liverpool Commission, and Professor Simeon McIntosh, and then the later commission in 2016, all of those suggest that the people of Grenada want generally to do away with the monarch, either as head of our state or in swearing allegiance. All of those suggest that. Because we all know what the monarch represents. History shows that the royal family itself had links to slavery in the West and profited from slavery. History shows that the Bank of England actually owned estates in Grenada. In fact, we wrote them with the assistance of Dr. Alexis again. Dr. Alexis is a national gem. With the assistance of Dr. Alexis last year, we wrote the governor of the Bank of England in relation to reparations for enslaved people that the bank held in 2 estates on this very island. I don't think I ever saw a response from the governor of the Bank of England. And that in itself tells the regard with which our former colonizers still hold us. So as we move step by step, little by little, to de-link and decouple altogether, I would implore all members of this Honorable House to vote in favor of this bill. And I will go as far as saying not to do so would be quite an undignified thing. And raise question about self-worth, how we feel about ourselves as a people. So as the elected members in the lower house did yesterday, I urge all of us to support this bill and to take advantage, show how deeply we feel about this by complying, ensuring that we comply with the provisions of Section 6 of the bill once it becomes law. And that section deals with transitional provisions as to oaths of allegiance. And it says, on the expiry of 12 hours immediately following the commencement of the appointed day, and that day in the bill is the 1st of August, the oath of allegiance sworn or solemnly affirmed by any functionary prior to the appointed day shall cease to have force, and such functionary shall, within 7 days, immediately following the commencement of the appointed day, swear or solemnly affirm the oath of allegiance, which shall come into force at the commencement day. So I trust that we all will take the opportunity. It's not many of us in the whole scheme of things. I pointed out the people. We should, except for the citizens, of course, it might take them a little longer, we should endeavor to retake our oaths. Doing so, swearing or affirming our allegiance to Grenada, Carriacou and Petite Martinique and its people. And of course, there's a proviso there that if for any reason any functionary did not swear solemnly affirm to the oath of allegiance within those 7 days, such functionary shall be deemed to have sworn or solemnly affirmed thereto immediately on the expiry of those days. So there is an automatic presumption that you had taken the oath of allegiance to Grenada, if you did not actually do so within the 7-day period. So, Madam President, I think this is quite a historic occasion, and I am happy to be part of the legislature that has made this history. And I was thinking, I might be too young to recall, but in my short life, I would say, I do not ever recall there being an occasion in the lower house where all members supported a bill. Apart from the occasions where, of course, the same political party enjoyed all the seats in the house. But I'm saying in my recollection is that I don't recall where there were opposition and government, coming from different political parties, all voting for a bill. I may be wrong. That's just my recollection. And I take this opportunity, Madam President, to thank the members of the Citizens for Constitution Reform, whose initiative it was to bring this suggestion to the Prime Minister and myself as Attorney General. And of course, it was my responsibility to sell it to the rest of my cabinet colleagues. It wasn't too hard to do, to sell it. And so I see some of the members here. Dr. Francis Alexis, thank you very much, Doc. Thank you. Mr. Ruggles Ferguson. I see Ms. Andrews. Ms. Andrews, yes. Mr. Lane. There's another lady there. Hi. And all of you know there's Dr. Grenade. Forgot your name, sorry. Wendy Crawford, Dr. Wendy Crawford, it's a Lady Anande Trotman Joseph. So it's a wide cross-section of good citizens, good and conscious citizens that comprise the Citizens for Constitution Reform. And we look forward to continuing to work with you as we bring meaningful and substantial changes to our people, changes that will lift us in terms of morale, dignity, self-pride, self-worth. These things are important. National pride is important. So we would like to place on record our thanks. And even more so, after we got the submission from the committee, and we were trying to get the legislation drafted, and we were taking a little too long. And I reached out to one of the members of the committee, and I said to them, look, we're working on this, but because of our other workload, it's taken a little longer than we anticipated. So could you help help us with drafting the bill? And of course they obliged, because of course I know the quality of the people headed by Dr. Alexis on the committee. And so they also not just presented the idea, but assisted us with drafting the bills that we are debating today. And we had several conversations and consultations over a period of a little over a year. So this is not last minute off the cuff. And went through the legislation, made all the different changes and so. So it was also a good and pleasurable thing working with this group, Madam President, to bring this first constitutional change that will come into force to our people. So, again, as a proud Grenadian, I commend this change in our Constitution to this Honourable House and commit to continuing with the public engagement and public education that the members of the lower house agreed to yesterday. But that will not affect coming into operation of the bill. I thank you, Madam President.
I thank you, Madam Senator. With pleasure, pride, and joy, your words. And I thank you for the first lesson to the public. And I thank you for the reminder. I was thinking when we reconvene in September following our August recess that we could retake our oath, because I think the sentiments you expressed are probably shared, widely shared, let's say. However, there is another opportunity. It's an opportunity on the 1st of August. I will ask the chair of the board of the Grenada Celebrations Committee, Mr. Christopher DeRiggs, and the executive director, Livingston Nelson, to see if it is possible to make space available for taking of oath at that midnight hour celebration of emancipation. And my ulterior motive, apart from retaking the oath, is to get all of you to come up to St. Andrews. I thank you, Senator. There are no requests for the floor. And so I offer the floor, Senator, Leader of Government Business, are you?
Okay.
I was dreaming.
President, now I realize this is not the West Indies, guys. The ball is not so bad. It's a friendly wicket. I don't understand. It's a very friendly wicket, Senator Queens. Everybody, yeah. Yeah, it's, I know I may have a little body to take the ball, but there is no bad ball. I mean, it's a softball, wind ball cricket. So, I would start, Madam President. I take this opportunity to make my contribution towards this bill, Constitution, Oath of Allegiance Amendment Number 1, Bill 2025, which seeks to amend Schedule 3 of the Constitution and Schedule 1 to the court's order to change the oath of allegiance from His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors, to read that we are taking this oath of allegiance to Grenada. So this is a discussion. I must say that officially about a month ago, I became engaged in about a 2 or 3 hour discussion with Dr. Alexis, of course, Attorney Ewart Lane, Brother Ferguson was on the connection, but he was not able to join us properly. Of course, Senator Rahman and my good friend Senator Luis, who, of course, is unavoidably absent today, and I know that he would have loved to be present to speak extensively on this important matter that he might have been in with this before. In that meeting, and this is important that I say this, we are presented essentially several of the discussed that Leader of Government Business and Senator Attorney General would have presented. Of course, we had a lot of questions, and of course, there are a lot of answers. My good friend, Dr. Alexis, who I know way back when, was very good at his responses, and of course, some responses he said, well, let Brother Lane answer them because they were a little bit too hard for him to answer. And I understand his modesty in that. But what was important for us in that discussion, and for me in particular, were 2 things. I was trying to get it through the notes. Somehow it's there, but I'm not seeing it. But 2 things. One of the main thing was, so what? What, at the end of the day, is this change going to create? And he passed that answer to Brother Lane to answer. And Brother Lane said, you know, my wife asked me the same question. And it was good, and that he was able to say that. Because notwithstanding the exuberance, quote unquote, to take a word from my good friend who went before me, Senator Horsford, so what? And as I sit here and reflect, I know the Leader of Government Business speaks about the change and we change and we change. I know when schools were called Bernadette Bailey. I know when schools were called Jeremiah Richardson. And I know many more and many others can call. I know when no constitution existed. So I guess there was no oaths and no allegiances. I say this to say, Madam President, sometimes we have to check our history. I wasn't good at it, but of course, these are things that I recall and stand corrected. So we have been there. And the question is, what has changed? What has changed is time, people, circumstances. And I say this to say that in the context of laws in particular, notwithstanding, you may not need a referendum, as I humbly suggested back to Dr. Alexis, and then he asked me for some numbers to contact different people, but I was sort of busy in the schedule. We need to take this to the broader community. I think we all agree with that, notwithstanding the direction. Because at the end of the day, while this may affect in the immediate 100 or 200 persons. There are several other persons in this country who are equally eligible to fit any one of the positions that are so affected by any of the sections referred to and will be covered and impacted by this bill. So the issue of public education in its true sense is not a difficult thing. We have done consultations of them in 1 week for very serious issues. And this is a serious issue. This is not a simple issue. And so I think, and I was astonished to learn that over a year now this thing been discussing, So there were several opportunities. I don't know what is the consultative record, which is a good practice for legislation and establishing bills and so on. There is a consultative record. It would be good to know outside of the government itself, outside of us, and I know outside of the opposition, which were also contacted and discussed with, from discussion with Dr. Alexis and his team. Who are these other people? Conference of churches, community groups, principals, schools, parents, PTA, a lot of groups in the country. Maybe there was. So I'm just asking. Because if it wasn't said, it doesn't mean that it didn't take place. Because it's good practice of consultation. Then it goes to the issue of impact. So what? They say, well, we'll feel liberated, we'll feel better, we'll feel. So it's like, some persons, depend on the clothes they wear, depend on the hairstyle, they feel different. Of that day, they feel more monksy. Some days they take a new hairstyle, they do a new hat, a new top. So you feel new. The question is, how with this change in this word? And I think it was St. Oswald says, our national anthem, Hail Grenada. How has that changed us? And would this part change us? The question is, who is changing? Who really taking his oaths? Not the average citizen in the community, on the blocks, in the rum shop, in the church, in the school, at the home. This oath are for a specific group of persons. So by and large, if you listen to Governor General, parliamentarians, all of these people. So by and large, you're speaking about maybe less than 5% of the population immediately is affected by this change we are speaking about. By and large, the rest of the population, it doesn't affect them unless they come in that realm. So maybe the issue of not having it to be a referendum might be part of that consideration, and understandably so. Maybe. So, and maybe that is why maybe there is no need to have this broad consultation, because it's just a few people it's really affecting. I don't know, I'm just looking at the logic on that. We're not saying whether it is a bad thing, we're not saying it's bad. We're just looking at process. Because sometimes they say, well, I learned as a little boy, it's not what you do, but it's how you do it. I could come to you and say, give me my glasses. I could say, can I have my glasses back, please? It has two different effects. It has two different results and different buy-ins. Of course, Madam President, on the issue of buy-in, interestingly, as I was sharing with my good friend Senator Rahman, the CAP 217, which is the oath of allegiances, the whole group, everybody has to take different oaths. everybody, whether it's jurors, witnesses, Governor General, everybody. That Oath Act 217 is maybe even more important than even the adjustments we are looking at. Because this Oath Act, it speaks about how to take an oath, the issue of perjury. So what you say is not the issue now, but how you say it and if you don't say it. So for example, I heard the Governor General mention, the Attorney General mention, well, she was wondering about whether she had to take the oath, and so she realized she has to take it. Well, all of us. Well, I just realized that myself as I do my research. And I learned that Clause 8 of this chapter 217 says, Madam President, penalty or refusal or neglect to take oath. Because you know, once you have laws and regulations, you must have penalties, consequences, etc. It says, if any person bound by this act, that's the Oath Act, which all these different sections, 20, etc., that we are referring to, connected to, if any person bound by this act to take the oath of allegiance of the official oath or both refuses or neglects to take it when duly tendered, meaning when it's ready, he or she shall, if he or she has already entered on his or her office, vacate it, mean to leave. Or if he or she has not entered, shall be disqualified from entering on it, but no person shall be compelled in respect of the same appointment to an office to take the oath or oaths more than once. So this brings into question two issues. Issue number one is, as we say sometimes, if you want to be in the dance, you have to pay to be in the dance. And the paying is to take the oath. And what it says further, which is important, is that, but no person shall be compelled in respect of the same appointment to an office to take the oath or oaths more than once. So the question arises whether or not we can all re-oath, if we want to use that word, as is considered in some circles. The same office and re-oathing. Of course, one may argue, well, it's not to the king and the queen anymore, it's to Grenada, it's a different oath. Which brings a new question to us. Is it the same oath? And so I think we have to be pay this in Cap 217 some due consideration. Notwithstanding that, Madam President, I don't like to refer to AI as a place of good information. But you know, they say times change, and AI is it. And AI is what it will be. So, according to AI, if I may quote AI, when I do a search on allegiance, because that was a debate, for me it was very, Dr. Alexis, what really is allegiance? And his response back then and I know he's in the crowd, and I know he cannot say anything, so we could discuss afterwards, but I'm not going to lie. He said, you know, from all his readings, he never saw really an official definition per se, and I accepted that. But in long and short, his conclusion was, because this is important, you know, we keep speaking on the oath, but the real issue is the allegiance. Is it allegiance to Grenada? Is it allegiance to a dog, or a cat, or to the queen, or a king? That is the most important thing. What are you paying? Is it to the God, to Lord? What is this allegiance to? An allegiance, in his words, to me, and us who are sitting there at the meeting, is to follow, to honor, to abide, uphold the laws and regulations, etc., of your country, to be a law-abiding citizen in the long and short. That's what it means. So what it means that we who are taking this oath, Madam President.
Thank you for your attention. According to rule number 41 of our standing orders, a senator present in the debate shall not read books, newspapers, letters, or other documents, save such as relate to the business before the Senate. It was written before the period of AI. And what I would like to, therefore, advise you is to be exactly precise in quoting AI. Yes. Quote when your citation begins and indicate when it ends.
Yes. Yeah.
Please do. Thank you.
Yes, Madam President. I haven't got to that part because there are two issues, Madam President. I'm trying to show the convergence of views, meaning that from our meeting, the definition that was put forward to us at the time, and of course, in the context of allegiance, what AI is saying. So I didn't quote the AI first, I quoted chronologically what was said at the meeting, and now I'm going towards the AI, which says, an oath of allegiance is a formal declaration of loyalty and commitment to a specific country or its governing body, often sworn by new citizens or those entering public office. It signifies a pledge to uphold the law, defend the Constitution, and support the nation. And of course, it had other things picked up. So I wanted to...
End of quote.
End of quote, yes. So I wanted well, it has another line, if I foreclose it properly, Madam President. It says, in republics, the oath is typically sworn to the country and its constitution, while in constitutional monarchies, it might be sworn to a monarch. I think that is very important. End of quote. Because this brings us into a new realm. I heard the word republic mentioned earlier, but I would not go there right now. I would go to that point. So I'm saying that brought clarity in the discussion, in that consultation as to what am I committing to. And to me, it's clear. As citizens, we should be committing to our country, to our laws, to what guides us, to uphold it. So Dr. Alexis was on point. However, Madam President, interestingly, AI went on to say in that same quote, normally in a republic, you allegiance to a country. So the question arises, as myself and my good friend Senator Rahman was quipping earlier, the word Grenada, if you look at the writing of the bill, he said, why not the name Grenada? Because Grenada is a country. And so the question is, what really is Grenada in the context of this allegiance and the context of republic and non-republic? These are questions, valid questions to be raised based on process. The road to republic. I heard my good friend leader of government business say, well, it's the first step, it's a process. I heard my good friend Senator Dwight Horsford say, keep your foot down. Well, I'm trying to figure that out. But yet still, he wants to see republic. But I guess he figured a republic must come. And of course, we know that is a higher order. That involves, as our AG says, a referendum. So the question arises, to what degree, is my understanding, this allegiance is like an indoctrination. It's a belief, right? That will take time to reach to that maximum. And would we ever reach a maximum if the maximum really is republic, to really transform that allegiance to Grenada? So Grenada, you want to stretch to reach it, but you are not there yet. And so the question could arise, how soon would we get to Grenada? That's the question. Because the allegiance really and truly is not to Grenada. It is for Grenada, because we have not gotten there yet. I have not gotten there. It's an allegiance for, I want to achieve, because we are not there yet. And so the question arises, so I would have expected to hear, Madam President, what's the plans for us getting there? How soon do we plan getting there? What is the cost implication? Because we have done referendums before, so we have some general framework as to how to get there. Of course, as was said by our learned Attorney General, Dominica got there. But Dominica got there, according to the learned Dr. Alexis, in our meeting, because after, well, I guess that's why he is well paid too, spending a whole night looking for that word. And I can't remember the exact word, but there are two words in the Constitution that they were able to, I wouldn't say it's a loophole, so two words that was established in the Constitution that gave them that window, and I'll call it that window, to able to transform into republic without having to go to a referendum. That was the cue, how they were able to do it. We don't have that luxury, and I will say yet, because you never know, someone may just find those words. And then we ask the question, well, and these questions are not questions we alone may ask. These are questions that people are asking, as Senator Horsford said, depending on where you go to. If you're in certain places, certain discussions will happen. In other places, you may never even hear those discussions. And the question arises, well, do you think the monarch will be upset? Do you think they will be angry if we move away, or if we make this change, or if we take down this symbol? Would they be angry? I mean, it's a genuine concern. And his words was well, nah, I don't think so. Because in Barbados, in fact, I think the king came down. Prince Charles, one of them, I don't think he was king at the time, came down to Barbados when that happened. And so that was another important point, because there are persons who are outside, especially the elderly persons who have made that whole connection, and I wouldn't say dependence, but that relationship and love with the UK, United Kingdom, and the monarchy, that it gives them some comfort, you know, through the years, because they have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. What would happen? And his words was no problem. And so, with that though, whilst they may not have a problem, how do we treat mentally that quote-unquote, I wouldn't say independence, but minusing of these persons who, especially the elderly persons who are wrong during those times, how would they feel? That's another type of education that need to take place. What is the social impact of that? You might be amazed that 20 years down the road, social scientists do a study and realize the impact of that move. And say, maybe we didn't do it correctly. So I think this is something that needs to be considered in that whole discourse. And then the other thing, Madam President, that we have to look at in all of this is, and we may not know, what benefits? Let us not fool ourselves. Let us not fool ourselves. What benefits? Notwithstanding how much estate, how much slave, how much so on has happened 40, 50 years ago, which we're still trying to get repatriation and compensation for. But in the now, last 30 years, what benefits that relationship of monarch has brought to this country? Because say no, because say none quickly. But have we done a proper assessment? It can be direct and it can be indirect. And I think this is important because sometimes you do certain things and you never know how it was happening all the time, only to realize when you make the move, because you never know what was happening behind the scenes. Just saying, these are things, otherwise we find ourselves, that's why when you do critical analysis, especially when you're doing changes, those things that look simple, we leave them alone and we say, oh man, it's just easy, man, just do this. So I don't want us to miss that opportunity that we might be happy now. 10 years from now we may not be here, 5 years from now we may not be here. And we sit on the sideline and say, shoots, you know, we really made an error in that, you know. No worry, man. Bills could be amended, they go fix that. And then how, as Senator Horsford said, the framing, the ascending of the laws and so on, how do we feel? How do we feel? How would we feel, Madam President? Yeah? If you go to the same chapter 27, chapter 217, it speaks of, I was trying to find it. Right, it speaks of 16, clause 16. Offense of, nothing that is different. It speaks of willfully making untrue declaration. I think that was it. I don't think I could find it right now, but what I'm trying to see, or what I'm seeing actually, is that we're making the oath. Well, we realize that we may not be able to make another oath. So that's the first thing. Unless we change that oath act. And then the other thing is, we are sitting and watching this. Are we going to take a motion to remove those representation of the monarch over your head, the mace? The crosses. Oh. or when does it move? Because I really shouldn't be coming here after the first and seeing this up there. I would be traumatized that we act differently. I will be. We're speaking about the Governor General would have to change out. Yet still, we having this? Sergeant Amazon, you cannot take part in the discussion. We may not even need a miss, because our miss might be different. Maybe it might be not making a cuckoo or some other thing like that. But that's a joke. But what I'm saying is that I want us to outside of this here understanding that we look at those things deeper, because the same public will turn around and say to us, we are jokers. This morning, one of my friends called me and said, but tell me how you could then go back and have all of these things after you do this. I said, boy, when I get down there, I would figure this out at the end of the day. Because these are real questions that the public would have on us. At this stage, Madam President, I think that I have shed sufficient light in terms of the concerns, the issues, maybe not be 100%, but sufficiently enough to add to the discussion. We are saying that it's a good direction. It's a good direction, but we want Grenada, not that Grenada not that Grenada. We want the real Grenada that belongs to us, without any shackles, without any paintings, without any ornaments around it. We want our real Grenada. And of course, I heard the issue about MBE and all of those things. I trust that there will be none coming up from now on. And our real heroes that should be honored according to our Heroes Bill and all of those things locally, that we start putting names to those things, because they exist. They exist. Are there a committee want to rename street and rename building? Where's the committee to rename, to appoint our heroes? Where? Sometimes we major in what we want to major in. And this is a clarion call that we don't have to wait on the, so are we going to wait on the king's birthday? Or whose birthday are we waiting on? Or is we waiting on our Independence Day? So we have to be clear. Otherwise, we can all say, yes, we support, but we'll be living a lie. And the good work that was done by our noble friends, and I show is done free of cost. I thought, yes, I know it's BS. It will bring it to disrepute. And I will say, last thing, I think that we need to commend the team, which I said earlier, but I think that the team need to expand itself, as we mentioned, maybe bring in even some of the students on internships and so on to involve, to keep that think tank going. And let us look at many other areas that we think that we can look at. And maybe if I knew that you was working on that, I could have sent the crop compensation there a long time, Senator Adrian Thomas. We might have get it a long time ago. So at this stage, Madam President, I close my remarks and endorse the direction proposed with those sentiments as so expressed. Thank you.
The distinguished senator for his prolific discourse on the theory and management of change management, because that's what you're talking about. How do we, what do we, it involves politics, culture, process. So thank you for your contribution. Ladies and gentlemen, it's half an hour past the noon hour, and I trust there are several speakers yet to come, and an additional bill. Ought we to break and have a lunch within the hour? I know some persons also have religious commitments that should commence now. So let me consult you to say that we should break immediately and resume in 45 minutes. I see some sentiments to the contrary. Break immediately and resume within 40 minutes. Is that possible? Agreed. Thank you.